Well, I think it's really beautiful because they give us really profound statements which are echoed in the Egyptian pyramid texts themselves, which are inscribed on some of the pyramids in Saqqara. And I think we should read from those texts as well because the implications are so profound, and the science is now there to support what's being suggested in these texts. And I'd like to read that quote and then get into the science and the physics of it, because I believe all the light that they're talking about in terms of the interior chambers of the pyramids and this light of heaven is actually HHO plasma, and that human beings are energized by colloidal gold and silver Ayurvedic waters used at the pyramid sites to be able to enter into these plasmas, into these energy chambers, and literally kindle themselves into becoming beings of eternal luminosity, exactly as described by Unbatz.
Alex, what I would like to do here is take a little short break here and then obviously continue with more here in our member section. But I do want you to mention your website and also give out some of your book titles again. What would you recommend in terms of your books for someone who's coming to some of these topics for the first time and want to dive into it, as it were?
Okay, that would be great. It's really difficult, I think, to skip ahead to some of my later books because my first book is really my most important work, and I think if you don't have that book, the other books I've written will not be as coherent. So I would really suggest for anyone interested to visit the buy page and the products at my website. The first book I produced is the most important product, called Phi, and it has a beautiful green and blue cover with the planetary geometry on the front and peacock feathers. And that book, I think, is one of the more expensive books I've produced, but it's certainly the largest and has the most profound and overriding concepts that I'd like to present. And from there, I think it makes sense to proceed to the other books I've written. And my second book, Tesla's Rebirth, is probably tough for a lot of people to take because I open up a can of worms that a lot of people are really fighting to understand in terms of global conspiracy. And so what I've done with that research is really divide my second book, Tesla's Rebirth, contains the positive aspects of Tesla's work and teaching and everything that we can bring today and move forward with conceptually in terms of bioelectrification, which was one of Tesla's greatest interests in his later years. He had the Tesla electrotherapy company. But the healing and the biorhythmic therapy that stems from Tesla work is really focused in my first book. And the third book I produced, the first book of my Tesla books, but the third book I produced, called The Veil of Invisibility, contains all of the conspiracy theory information, all of the scientific information that supports the understanding presented by Otto Skorzeny and transmitted through the book The Bush Connection, which deals with the direct Nazi connection between Tesla's administrative assistant, George Scherf, and his son, George Scherf Jr., who, in fact, Otto Skorzeny revealed to be Nazi spies, and, in fact, revealed the identity of George Scherf Jr. as actually being Nazi spy, a child spy in Tesla's lab, who, after Tesla's assassination, became known as, and used the alias George Herbert Walker Bush. And the connection there, which is really fascinating as well, has to do with the understanding Otto Skorzeny gave that Prescott Bush was, in fact, a secondary alias for George Scherf Sr., who was Tesla's assistant, who pretty much disappeared. His identity did not exist after Tesla was assassinated. So that's a fascinating read, but something that I really think is completely secondary, and I hope that people will choose to absorb Phi and the more positive aspects I have to talk about before they try to understand the context that's important to in reading a book like The Veil of Invisibility or The Bush Connection by Eric Orion.
Right, really good. Again, the website humanresonance.org. Click on the buy button and see if there's something there you like, because it's tons of interesting stuff there for you. And obviously we have loads to talk about here in our members section, Alex. I want to ask you more about HHO plasma. I want to talk a bit more about the casing stones actually on the pyramids and much more, obviously. But stay with us, Alex, and we'll be back here in a while with more. Stay with us as we talk more with Alex in hour 2 for our members about grounding of the human body, illumination, how to light up or enlighten your DNA, and the special water with gold and silver particles. We discuss the true versus the false or the corrupt Illuminati. We discuss the casing stones to the pyramids, how those were put together, what their properties are. We talk about the flood and water from Mars. Changing energies are affecting the planet. There's anomalies taking place around the world in accordance to the standing wave ratio that Alex have mapped and that we've talked about. We have things like unexplained fires, levitating stones, and even strange animals that might mean changes in DNA. We talk about the purpose of the pyramid, fire, light, and their function. We do get into 2012 as well. We get Alex's take on this, and we discuss magnetic reversal and Betelgeuse. This star has shockingly been shrinking more than 15% since 1993. Is it going to go supernova in 2012? Will the effects of this potential dying star actually reach us at this critical moment? Don't miss hour 2 with Alex Putney. Click on members to log in and download, or click on subscribe to sign up if you want to hear more. Go to our website and read all about signing up for a subscription. It's right there. Okay, but we'll see you on the other side. Look around our website for radio, TV commentary, film, news, articles, and research material on many of the things that we find interesting and of importance. Today we are joined by Alex Putney, who is behind a really interesting website called humanresonance.org. I first came across this site while looking for information about the strange objects or artifacts found at La Mana in Ecuador, some of which are actually UV fluorescent. In other words, they actually glow in what is known as black light. Some of the artifacts included interesting enough, a 13-step pyramid with an eye at the capstone. You probably know that symbol. Also a cobra, a snake or a naga serpent was found. But this is just one little small aspect of the material that Alex presents on his website. On humanresonance.org you can also find things like theories on standing waves, geometrical relationship between ancient monuments, magnetic resonance, the Earth chakra points, changing energies, 2012 levitation, Tesla, theories on the pyramids at Giza, a special water with gold and silver particles, black light. It's all connected, and these are some of the aspects that we'll be talking about. So stay with us here for an interesting discussion. Alex, welcome to Red Ice Radio. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Heinrich, for having me. I'm really enjoying this opportunity to reach all your viewers out in the Northern Europe and all the areas across Europe where people are tuning in. I actually just found your website myself, so it's a great discovery.
Okay, well, so Alex, I think the first thing I'd like to ask you about is a little bit in terms of your background, but also when you decided to start up your website, humanresonance.org, and how long have you been running the website now?
Well, that's an interesting question, actually. My background, I studied sculpture at Boston University, and I was introduced to this field of sacred geometry and ancient architecture and ancient artifacts through art history and studying through slide lectures in university. I went to Boston University, so they had a very good academic program and a very good traditional foundation sculpture program there. So I spent many years doing welding and wood carving, plaster casting, clay work, all kinds of things. And that really led me into a fellowship, a graduate fellowship through Brandeis University in 2001 to 2 for a year-long study in Arica, Chile, to investigate artistically and study through photographs, drawings, and sculpture the Chinchorro mummies of the Atacama Desert of northern Chile and southern Peru. So that really led me down a path of discovery, because it was there that I found ancient whistles that turned out to be tuned psychoacoustically. And so my research really took off from there, which ended up in culminating in the website and my first book about 3 years later.
Mention your book. What is it called?
Well, my first book is called Phi, and that's the mathematical symbol for the constant, not pi, which is a commonly known constant of 3.14, but it's phi, which is a constant of 1.618. And that's a transcendental constant, so it continues indefinitely. And 1.618 is just the first 4 digits by which most people use to identify that number. So that's my first book, and that came out, excuse me, in 2006. And I've since then produced 4 other books, and I'm working on my 6th book right now.
There you go. So tons of material obviously out there. And again, your website is vast and has a lot of interesting things on it. Is there, let's say someone new is coming to your kind of work and your website, is there an overarching kind of theory that you would like to mention as a way of introduction to you and your work?
Sure. Well, I think the main concept, the overriding idea that I'm presenting throughout the website has to do with the repeating images you'll find throughout that present standing waves, which are, it's a waveform that was first discovered by Nikola Tesla and identified by him in his Colorado Spring notes of, I believe it was July 3rd, 1899, he recorded the discovery of standing waves. And I actually read about that a lot later. I first read about standing waves in the context of research done by the Czech Technical University in Prague. And after I read their paper on standing waves and the fact that they were generating these waves in their resonators using 3 frequencies chosen within a Fibonacci ratio. So, for example, that would be something like 2 hertz, 3 hertz, and 5 hertz, which reflects that 1.618 ratio that I had identified earlier and we've talked about, or you've probably talked about in previous interviews. So that's really the crux of my entrance, and I didn't actually research the context of Tesla and standing waves in their initial discovery until years later.